What if everything you were told about the purpose of school wasn't true? It's 2 a.m. You're cramming formulas into your head for tomorrow's final. You'll use them for exactly 3 hours, and then never again for the rest of your life. Everyone in that exam hall knows it, the professor knows it, and yet the whole system keeps running, and keeps getting more expensive. So why are you learning it? The official version is simple. You learn things in school, and later you use them in life, especially your working life. Except, think about the last thing that you learned in a math class. Now think about the last time you used it. Repeat for biology, chemistry, or history. How often did you actually use it? Then maybe you're just learning how to learn, but that doesn't check out either. Back in 1901, the psychologist Edward Thorndike tested the leading theory of his day, that studying the hard subjects like Latin and geometry trains your mind, generally, the way exercise trains a muscle. He ran people through learning tasks and checked whether one skill in one transferred to another. It mostly didn't, unless the tasks were neatly identical. That finding, that transfer is narrow, not general, has held up for over a century. Getting good at calculus doesn't make you better at, say, writing history essays. The transfer of learning is so low that even learning to memorize numbers doesn't help you memorize letters. And that's not exaggeration. In one famous experiment, researchers trained a volunteer, known as SF, to memorize strings of random digits. After 250 hours of practice, his memory span went from 7 digits to 80, one of the biggest memory improvements ever recorded. Then they switched him from numbers to letters. His span collapsed back to 6. 250 hours of training, wiped out by changing the symbols. He hadn't upgraded his memory. He built one extremely specific trick, and that trick didn't travel. So if it's not knowledge, and it's not a general skill, what is school actually doing for 12 to 20 years? And why does it pay to have a degree or an education? Well, there's a Nobel Prize-winning theory that answers exactly that. Meet the signaling theory of education. Spence won the Nobel Prize in 2001 for it, shared with 2 other economists who studied the same deep problem in used cars and insurance markets. What happens when one side of the deal knows something the other side can't see? A used car seller knows if the car's a lemon. You don't. An employer can't see inside your head. The whole field is called information economics, and education, it turns out, is one of its biggest case studies. In 1973, Michael Spence asked a simple question. Employers want smart, disciplined, hardworking people, but how do they know who that actually is before they hire them? They can't read minds, so they look for a signal, something visible standing in for the invisible qualities they actually care about, especially intelligence and conformity. And what requires intelligence and conformity? An education. Not because of what you learned, but because of what it took to get it. Sitting through years of deadlines, exams, and rules you didn't choose is hard, and specifically harder for people who lack the traits employees are screening for. Economists call this a separating equilibrium. Put 2 people through the same 4 years, one naturally sharp and compliant, one not, and the degree splits them apart. Not by teaching them differently, by being easier for one to finish than the other. Want proof this is how it works? Free online courses. The world's best universities have put their actual lectures online. MIT, Stanford, Harvard, often completely free. Same professors, same material. If education were about knowledge, a free certificate from an MIT course should be worth something close to an MIT degree. It's worth almost nothing. Employers barely glance at it. Why? Because the signal only works if it's costly to send. Anyone can click through videos at 2x speed in their pajamas. Not everyone can survive 4 years of deadlines, gatekeeping, and rules they didn't choose. The moment that a credential becomes easy to get, it stops separating anyone, which means it stops being worth anything. The suffering isn't a side effect. The suffering is the product. Here's the piece of evidence that makes the theory even harder to dismiss. The sheepskin effect. If education were about skills, earnings should rise smoothly with each year of school. That's not what happens. There's a massive jump in earnings, specifically in the year you complete the degree, far bigger than the jump from any single prior year. 3 years of college with no degree barely moves your income. The 4th year, the one that gets you the diploma, moves it enormously. You learned roughly the same amount in year 3 as in year 4. Now, the obvious objection. Doesn't this just reflect that history majors who land finance jobs were already sharper and harder working before college? Sure, some of that's real, and it's the hardest thing to fully rule out. But the sheepskin effect is specifically hard to explain by pre-existing ability alone. If ability were doing all the work, you'd expect income to climb steadily as ability signaling years accumulate, not spike specifically at the diploma. The jump at completion, not before it, is the part that ability bias struggles to explain. A second obvious objection: if this is just about screening for intelligence and conformity, why not skip 4 years and give an IQ test? 2 reasons. Legally, you can't, at least not in the US since 1971. And conformity, specifically, isn't something a single afternoon test can measure. It requires proving you'll show up and follow through for years, not that you can answer questions well for 2 hours. Brian Caplan, an economist at George Mason University, ran with this in his book, The Case Against Education. His estimate? As much as 80% of the return to a college degree comes from signaling, not skill building. To be fair, most economists, including Spence himself, don't think it's all signaling. Some of school clearly builds real skills: literacy, numeracy, specialized technical training in fields like engineering and nursing. The honest picture is probably a mix, with the ratio shifting by field and level. But even a partially signaling effect changes how you should think about the whole system. If a meaningful chunk of a degree's value is proving you survived something hard, not what you learned while surviving it, then building an education around content delivery and standardized tests may be solving the wrong problem entirely. Which raises an uncomfortable question for anyone paying tuition, or any policymaker deciding how much to subsidize it. Are we investing in human capital, or running an increasingly expensive, increasingly long tournament to see who can make it to the end? Here's the strange part. If education really is mostly signaling, it changes nothing about what you should do. The signal still pays. You should probably still get the degree. But it changes everything about what society should do. It's like standing in a theater to see better. It works for you. But then the person behind you stands. Then everyone stands. And now the whole audience is on their feet, seeing exactly what you saw before, just less comfortably. That's what happens when a country pumps money into making degrees easier to get. It doesn't raise the nation's skills. It just raises the bar everyone has to clear to stand out. Whether you buy 20% of the story or 80% of it, it's hard to look at a diploma the same way again.